Hello and welcome or welcome back to the Import-Export Hub channel, everybody. Borin Bogdan here, your host for the next couple of minutes. Thanks for joining in, and guys, without asking you to hit those small buttons below this video, let's jump into today's topic, in which I will cover 5 products that are worth exporting towards South Africa. And as usual, I've prepared for you some boring tables here in order to see the volumes, the trading partners, and other variables. And the first product that I recommend, it's coming from heading 8708. So we're talking about parts and accessories for tractors, motor vehicles for the transport of 10 or more persons. And we see here that in 2022, South Africa's imports from this particular heading amounted to some $1.77 billion, with Germany, China, and the United States as the main partners, with almost 50% cumulatively in terms of share, which were followed by others like, I don't know, Thailand, Spain, or Mexico. The last one managing to export some $48.3 million worth of goods towards South Africa. In terms of compound annual growth rate between 2018 and 2022, India, Mexico, and also China had the largest figures, all above the 7% mark. While in terms of year-on-year changes, we see very good figures coming from India and China, with some $20.5 million more exports for the former and some $41.5 million more exports for the latter, confirming the upward trend basically. While on the other side of the spectrum, if you want, we have here the United States and Japan, who in the last 5 years managed to have a negative compound annual growth rate, as 2020, the year we all want to forget, is also included and of course affected their overall figures. But year on year, they had positive figures. United States, for example, with a 4.4% increase, and Japan with almost 3%. The only negative change, again, year on year, happening in relation with Germany, whose exports to South Africa shrunk with 1.2%, some $4.5 million, which, let's face it, is not a big deal. Personally, I think that China and India are going to be the next growth poles in terms of exports towards South Africa. Also, Thailand has a lot of potential, but of course, we will have to wait and see, as this supply chain reconfiguration needs time. As for the main drivers here from Thailand, we have brakes and servo brakes. So we're talking about subheading 870830, while from Mexico we have drive axles with differential, so subheading 870850. Jumping now, guys, to my second recommendation, we have here heading 3105. So we are speaking about mineral or chemical fertilizers, with some $314 million worth of imports for 2022. And we see that the Russian Federation, Saudi Arabia, and China were South Africa's largest trading partners. Russia alone accounting for some 45% of South Africa's overall imports from this heading. But we have others like, I don't know, Italy, the United States, or Finland, for example. This last one being a relative new player in these last 5 years at least, meaning that they either have a plant there who needs this kind of input, or they provide highly complex fertilizers for the South African market. Relative to the year-on-year changes, we have almost a 29% increase in relative terms and some $70 million in absolute ones, with all the top 10 partners having positive figures. The largest change in absolute terms, at least, happening in relation with Mother Russia, who managed to export with some $21.5 million more than in 2021. And personally, I bet that the figure for 2023 will be again a double-digit growth. As for the main drivers, I won't embarrass myself by reading the description here, and I will read only the subheadings. So for the Russian Federation, we have subheading 310550, while from Finland we have subheading 310590. Jumping now to my third recommendation, we have here heading 0207, and we're talking about meat and edible offal of fowls, ducks, geese and turkeys. Sorry, my vegetarian friends. We see that for 2022, the overall imports amounted to some $278 million, with Brazil, the United States and Argentina basically representing more than 90% of the overall supply for this particular heading. But we have others with a lot of growing potential, like Australia or its Watini, so the former Swaziland. In terms of year-on-year dynamics, we have some 23% contraction, pretty much if you ask me, which in absolute terms translate into some $82 million, with almost all the top 10 partners in red except Argentina and Eswatini, who somehow managed to increase their exports relative to 2021. Now, in what concerns the drivers here, from Argentina we have frozen cuts and edible offal of fowls, while from Canada we have again frozen cuts and edible offal, but this time of turkeys. Now, jumping to my fourth recommendation, yes, the fourth one, I have here the data for heading 0802. So basically we're talking about other nuts, fresh or dried, excluding coconuts, Brazil nuts and some other nuts. We see here that in 2022 the overall imports reached almost $59 million, which is 47% more relative to 2021, with almost 8% compound annual growth rate between these time frames, so 2018 and 2022. We see that the United States, Mozambique and Malawi were South Africa's largest trading partners, but we have others like, I know, Turkey, Zambia or China, to name just a couple from this top 10 list. Relative to the year-on-year changes, except for Malawi and also Zimbabwe, whose exports towards South Africa shrunk, the rest of them had positive changes. The largest one, at least in absolute figures, happening in relation with the United States and Mozambique, some $11 million more exports for the former and some $4.5 million more exports for the latter. As for the main drivers, well, from Mozambique we have here subheading 080261, so fresh or dry macadamia nuts in shell, while from Turkey we have subheading 080222, so we are talking about fresh or dried hazelnuts shelled. And my guess is that Turkey's exports towards South Africa will grow in the following years. Anyhow, moving now to my fifth and last recommendation for you, we have here heading 3926, so articles of plastics, and we see that in 2022 the overall imports increased with almost 3%, some $7.4 million if I were to put a dollar value to this percentage. And we have here China, Germany and the United States as the main partners, which were followed by others like Italy, Romania or the Netherlands, again to name just a couple. Relative to the year-on-year dynamics, China, Germany and Italy were below the line, all with negative figures, While above the line, if you want, we have very good performances coming from the United States, the Czech Republic, Romania, Spain, and India, all basically with figures above the $1 million mark. As for the main drivers, well, here we have for both Romania and China the same subheading. So we are talking about 392690, basically articles of plastics and articles of other materials of heading 3901 to 3914. And guys, with this being covered as well, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. I hope you've liked it. Don't forget to chip in with a like or a subscribe. And as usual, until next time, keep your business safe. Thanks.